Hey guys, welcome to Motoroids. My name is Amit and this is the Honda Amaze, the car that will take on the mighty Maruti Suzuki Dzire. And I'll be very honest with you, when I first saw the images at the launch and I looked at the interiors, I was not very impressed. I thought maybe Honda could have done a little bit more with this car. But boy, after having driven it for over 100 kilometers and especially after having listened very deeply to what the Honda people had to tell us at the presentation yesterday, looking at all the features and carefully evaluating everything that this car has to offer, I must say that this is indeed a very impressive car. And especially when you look at its pricing, it does come across as a machine that is very suitable for the Indian small families who want a car to do most things right without having to break a bank. So in case you're looking for buying a car in the rupees 10-12 lakh rupees or thereabouts, if you're confused about whether to buy the Amaze or the Dzire, or even if you're considering a sub 4 meter SUV and you are facing the dilemma whether you should buy that sub 4 meter SUV or whether you should buy this car, then you should watch this video till the end, because in this video I'll try to clear all your doubts about all of those questions that you may have in your mind and the ones that I just mentioned. So let's start off with the engine, and the engine is the same as before. There are no major overhauls, although some changes have been made. It gets a new ECU, and now of course changes have been made to make it compliant with the ADAS system that it has. It has a camera based ADAS system. Also the gear ratios have been altered a little bit, so in that sense it has a better in-gear acceleration from 40 to 100 kilometers, better by about 1.4 seconds. What Honda is claiming is that the low-end tractability of this car is also slightly better. It's more refined, it's more insulated. Now, whether all of that is true is something that we are going to explore now. Now, to start off, the most important aspect about a car which is going to be used in the city and sometimes on the highway like this one is the tractability. And the tractability, generally speaking, is reasonably good. So even from 600 RPM, there is reasonable amount of pull. The car doesn't die on you, but the real pull, something that can be called tractable, builds from about 1000 RPM. From 1500, 1600 RPM, you have a sense of reasonably strong acceleration, and that point onwards, this car is going to accelerate very cleanly all the way to its limiter that cuts in at about 6600 RPM. The peak power here is 90 PS, which is significantly better than the Dzire. The Dzire has about 82 PS. This one has 90 PS. And the torque here is 110 Newton meters, which is about Newton meter and a half less than the Dzire. So performance-wise, this engine is not second to the Dzire. And the other advantage that a lot of people have been talking about is the refinement, since it's a 4-cylinder unit and it is a Honda unit, so it is quite refined, especially if you're using it for the range that a car is primarily meant to be used at. So between 1000 and 2500 RPM, the range where a car is essentially used at in day-to-day conditions, this car does come across as very refined. And even when you pull it above 3000 RPM, there is some engine noise coming in, but it does not come across as unrefined or anything of that sort. Now, comparing it with the Dzire has a wee bit of engine noise. It's not as refined, clearly, because it's a 3-cylinder engine. But credit where it's due, Maruti Suzuki have also done a fantastic job with the refinement of that 3-cylinder engine, and it does not rock like a lot of other 3-cylinder engines that we have seen. And for a 3-cylinder engine, that engine is also quite refined. But in outright refinement terms, I think the Honda Amaze is the better bet. Apart from that, I checked the gear ratios a little bit, and in the first gear, this one will do about 48 kilometers per hour. In the second gear, it will go to 88 kilometers, and in the third gear, it will cross 140 kilometers per hour. The acceleration, as I saw, is generally brisk only after 2000 RPM, and while you're driving within the city, that again is a point of comparison between the Dzire and the Amaze. The Dzire feels slightly stronger lower down the rev range. The Z series engine is very tractable indeed, and this car, until you take it to about 1600, 1700 RPM, does not feel as strong. The Dzire does feel strong from 1000 200 RPM onwards. So in that sense, the low-end tractability of the Dzire is, in my opinion, better than this, but this one also is quite tractable, as I mentioned right at the outset. Now that is one aspect. The fuel efficiency, as claimed by Honda, for the CVT is actually higher than the manual. And for the CVT, the fuel efficiency is 19.5 kmpl claimed, and for the manual, it's about 18.6 kmpl. Now, I'm driving the manual. As you can see, this is a 5-speed manual. Beautiful Honda shifts, very slick, short throw, and both the Dzire and the Amaze are quite comparable in terms of their gear shifts. Very slick, and there is absolutely nothing to complain about. In fact, this little gear stick is quite nice to hold, and the way it just slots in is very nice. The engine is smooth, the gearbox is fantastic, the clutch action is light, although I do miss a dead pedal. There is no dead pedal here. But even if you don't have a dead pedal, even if you don't drive a CVT or an automatic here, you are not going to get frustrated because the clutch action is quite light, and in that sense this is a car that you actually can use within the city without any problem. Now, about the real world fuel efficiency, if you are going to be driving the manual, the fuel efficiency here in the city is about 14 to 15 kmpl, and on the highway this will actually exceed 20 kmpl. So I got about 15 kmpl within the city, and on the highway I got 21 kmpl. And that's not too far off from what you'll get on the Dzire. The Dzire definitely has better fuel efficiency, about 24 kmpl air, and the real world fuel efficiency there is also slightly better. But the fuel efficiency here is also pretty good. And if it's not such a big concern for you, if you're not going to be driving the car for long distances, if your running is not too much, then that should not be a very important parameter. And the fuel efficiency, generally speaking, is pretty good, so you should not bother that much about it. If you're not going to be running your car for very long distances, it's not going to make much of a difference. The fuel efficiency on this car is pretty good. Now, apart from that, the other changes that have been made to this car are the whole chassis has been strengthened. Now it gets more high tensile strength in its steel, and the safety ratings, while we don't have any NCAP ratings yet, what Honda is saying is that they have done some internal tests, and when the BNCAP tests happen, whenever any tests happen, this car is going to come out with very good ratings. And while we cannot attest to that, well, Honda being Honda, we can be sure that this car will probably rate well in the crash test ratings. So by virtue of that, the suspension had to be retuned. This car gets new bushings, and all of that is quite evident when you drive this car, and it feels more stable. It feels a little bit more planted. It feels like it's a slightly bigger car than what it felt like in its earlier generation. It feels more planted, a little bit more poised, and when you are at speed as well, it does feel like it can handle speeds which are well above the triple digit mark without much problem. So in that sense, the stability of the car has become very good, and the ride quality also, because of the retuned suspension, is quite good. It rides in a very supple fashion. It doesn't ride firm, although at very slow speeds you do feel slight bit of firmness, but that is also important for the car to have some stability while you're taking it around corners. And the steering also has nice weight to it. It's not one of those feather light steering wheels which you can just turn around with your pinky, and at slow speeds it does feel a little bit firm, but it has its advantages as you go around a bend like this. And the body roll, while it's present, it's an everyday car, but it does feel very stable. The tires also don't squeal and squeak as much as I would have expected, and generally the dynamic ability of this car has improved significantly in my personal opinion. The weight has gone up by 30 kgs and it has been compensated for rather well. So all in all, in terms of the maturity of the car, I think this car in its latest generation has matured significantly. Insulation has been improved drastically. There is absolutely no outside noise coming in. They have really worked very hard on the insulation as well. And while you're sitting inside of the car and driving it, you do feel that a lot of work has gone into it, that the sound, the noise cancellation, the stability, the acceleration, all of that has improved, and Honda have worked in areas which really are very important. Now, talking about important areas, the ADAS on this car is something that makes it the most economical car with ADAS in India. And the camera-based ADAS, while it does not match the radar-based ADAS systems, I think it's adequate, and for our conditions, it's about all that you need, especially in this segment. And the good thing is that it really works. So the most important features like the lane keep assist system, and the fact that it does come with adaptive cruise control, and it can increase or decrease its speed based on the car that's ahead of you. It does give you a warning when the car ahead of you has driven away. All of those things really make it a very usable system, and I really think that that feature is something which is of great value, especially at that price. So that really makes it a great value for money proposition on this car. And if you're someone who hasn't experienced ADAS yet, on this car, on its top of the line ZX variant, I think it is a smashing feature to have. All in all, I'm impressed. A few things that the Dzire does better than this. I think the tractability, the lower end tractability on that car is slightly better than this. Also, the fuel efficiency on that car is slightly better. But in terms of the dynamic ability, the suspension, the maturity of the car, I think the Honda Amaze really amazes. On to the CVT then, guys, and apparently the CVT has also been improved for the new Honda Amaze. What we have been told is that the software for the CVT has been upgraded, and while as all of us know, CVT is a continuously variable transmission where you don't have any steps or gears, but you have these paddle shifters, which is fantastic for this class. And using these paddle shifters, you actually can choose from as many as 7 ratios. So you have D1, D2, D3 all the way till D7, and you also have a sport mode. So while it is definitely slightly better than what it used to be, but as I mentioned, it's just slightly better. And what happens is, as you can hear right now, the revs don't increase in a manner which is commensurate with the speed of the car. So it's not definitely as good as an automatic transmission, but it is, of course, definitely is a fantastic feature to have if you're going to be driving within the city and if you don't want to be changing too much. Of the two, if you want to pick the more fun car, definitely the manual is the more fun, and this one is essentially meant only if you want comfort. So don't expect any kind of a fun to drive feel from this one. It's a very functional kind of a setup. It does have paddle shifters, but they do still take a wee bit of a time, and there is a bit of a rubber band effect coming in. There is that engine noise coming in, which is not commensurate with the speed, as I mentioned. So it's fantastic. It works very well for all practical purposes. If you're in a city like we are right now in Goa, if you're stuck in traffic, or even if you're on the highway where you don't want to be shifting, CVT is fantastic. But I just need to make sure that I let you know everything that is there to be known about this transmission. And in D, when you rev it hard, of course, you will have a bit of a stretchy effect. You will hear noises more than experiencing the speed. And if you go to the manual mode while being in D, at 5000 RPM, what will happen is that the digits that you see here, like whether you're in D3, D4, D2, will just disappear. Let me just demonstrate to you. As soon as you cross 5000, it will go automatically in D mode where you won't be able to see which ratio you're carrying. However, as soon as you move to S, the shifts become slightly quicker. If you're not using the manual mode, as in the pedal shifters, you'll feel that the car has a wee bit more alacrity to it. The engine is allowed to rev harder, and even in the manual S mode, the car allows the revs to go all the way to 6000 RPM before changing the gear. Also, you'll be able to see that once the shift is made, the next gear is shown. So it is nice in a way. It gives you a sensation of speed, but it's not exactly an enthusiast's choice. This is a very practical system, but all the features that they've given with the sport mode and the paddle shifters make it come across as slightly more sporty than your conventional CVT. Now, in terms of fuel efficiency, while the ARA number for the CVT is more, it's about 19.5 kmpl as against the manual's 8.6. In the real world, from my observation, you will get about 13 to 14 kmpl within the city if the traffic is heavy, and on the highway also you will get about 18 kmpl maximum. So the CVT's fuel efficiency is slightly lesser in my observation as compared to the manual. Much as I would like to talk about this car in isolation, but I know that's just not possible. It doesn't make sense unless I bring the Dzire also in the picture. And the good thing is that this car has some advantages over the Dzire. Now, the most important part of any car's cabin space is the wheelbase, and there this car scores 20 mm longer than the Dzire. So with about 20 mm longer wheelbase, this does have more cabin space. It has the same length as the Dzire, but the Dzire is very slightly just 2 mm wider than this car, but the Dzire wins in terms of the height. But also what you need to keep in mind is that the ground clearance here is more than the Dzire. So some of the advantage that the Dzire has in terms of height is compensated for, and the about 20 plus height advantage that the Dzire has does not entirely translate into the headroom. So all in all, it is a very good dimensional package, and it is slightly better than the Dzire in terms of overall dimensions, especially because of the wheelbase. And a few important things that you would want to know, I would want you to tell me what you think about this design. Well, I think it's a smart design. It's not an earth-shattering design that is going to win any beauty contests, but it's a clean design and it's inoffensive. It looks smart, it looks elegant, and I'll just leave it at that. I would definitely want you to tell me what you think about this design. In terms of flamboyance, I think the Dzire looks slightly better than this. It has more personality, but this is also very clean, very elegant, very wide-looking design, which enhances the width and the size of the car. The bonnet also makes it look very muscular and strong. Now the LED lighting here that you see is designed in a manner where this thing here is the low beam, this one inside is the high beam, and the DRL and the blinker are integrated in this unit here. Let's have a look at that. This car also gets an auto high beam thanks to the ADAS system. What it does not get is a 360-degree camera like the Dzire, and as you can see, you don't have any front camera units. However, you can get the front sensors for this car, and you can also get a drive recorder for this car if you so wish, in the form of an accessory. So that is available if you want. You also get an LED fog lamp here, and all in all, I really think that it's a very neat design. The camera for the ADAS sits there, and when you use the wiper, the lights come on automatically. So Honda have done a lot of small things which are very important, and I really think that if you can do without that one 360-degree camera unit, there are a lot of goodies on this car. Let's have a look at the car from the side as well, and a very peculiar thing about it is that it gets a camera only on one side, and that's for the blind spot warning system. So when you turn the left blinker on, you can get a feed of what is there on your left blind spot. You also have a dedicated button on the stock to bring that feed on. However, you don't get a similar setup on the right, and this is primarily meant only to alert you about what's there on your left blind spot. The wheels here are 15 inches, and on the VX and ZX variant you have 185 section tires. On the VX you won't get these machine cut wheels, you'll get a painted silver alloy, but the size is going to remain the same. The ground clearance, as I mentioned, is 172 mm, and while coming here, as you can see, we are in the rough. We had to get down from the tarmac and the drop was quite steep, but this car managed to take it in its stride without any problem. And that brings us to the roof, where you don't have a sunroof. I really think that Honda should have included that feature because it's an in-demand feature, something that people are clamoring for, and it's actually a decision maker for a lot of families. So I think that feature should have been there, but it's missing, and it's there on the Dzire. You get a shark fin antenna, and the greenhouse area, as you can see, is quite big. While you're sitting in the car, you don't feel claustrophobic. The glass panels are pretty big, and that's not a problem. Another great detail is the fact that you get these chrome handles, and one feature that this car has and the Dzire does not, that when you shut the door and you walk away, the doors auto lock. It's locked now. So that's another feature that this car has and the Dzire does not, and all of these small features really make it a very practical choice in my eyes, and it does present itself as a very strong contender to the Dzire. Now coming to the boot, let's have a look at the lights as well, and this is the entire tail light assembly. This is light that gets illuminated. This is a stop lamp, but the blinker and the reverse light are bulbs. Let's see them in action. Now another big ace that the Amaze has up its sleeve is that its boot size is bigger than that of the Dzires, and here you have 416 liters of boot space as against the 382 liters on the Dzire, and technically speaking that is going to give you some advantage. Practically it's not going to make a huge difference, but yes, you have about 34 extra liters of boot space on this car. You get a 175 section 14-incher steel rim as a spare, and this boot by itself is something which would allow you to go out with your family on a longish holiday. Now, while you don't have a camera up front, you do have a camera here. And how well has it been integrated? How good is the quality? We'll just see. But from the rear also, if you look at the tail lamps, they do remind you of the Honda City, as a lot of you have mentioned. But it does highlight the fact that it's a wide looking car. And overall, when you look at the car from all angles, it does come across as a very mature, very cleanly designed, very wide, very squat, and a no fuss kind of a car. Again, what do you think about the car's design? Do let us know in the comment section. I'll be very keen on knowing what's your opinion on that. Now, various different variants like the V, the VX and the ZX have different features, and I'll do a different separate video on that. But let's get inside the cabin and see the features that we have inside the cabin of this car. Alright, so let's have a look at the key also, and you have these three buttons: lock, unlock and boot release. And if you go with the CVT variant, you'll also have the remote start button as well. As you approach the car, even if the car is locked, the proximity sensor is going to sense it, and you just have to yank the handle and you can enter this very neatly done, a no fuss, clutter free, good quality cabin. And I was really impressed with the fit and finish and the choice of colors and inserts on this car. It does come across as a car which has been very neatly appointed. Now, the quality of materials is not something great to write home about. All of this is hard plastic, this is hard plastic, this is fabric which is soft to touch, auto up and down for the driver's side window, and you have electric, of course, controls for the ORVM, lock, unlock. These are the controls for the mirror, and you can lock the window using this button. Lock and unlock buttons are there. You have space for a very big water bottle and then some space to spare. But the nice thing here is the ease to get in. And also, if you look at the upholstery, when you look at how the seats are appointed, they do have a sense of quality and finesse about them. Just look at them, and they are done in a very neat, very classy, very no fuss kind of a manner, and I quite like the way they look. At least I really think that the bolstering is good, but the seats by themselves could have been slightly bigger for people who are slightly bigger than my frame. I fit in just perfect, but for people who are bigger than my size, probably could have done with a slightly bigger seat. I'm not complaining, but it's just like, you know, a point on my wish list. There are no electrical controls for the seat. The seat is obviously height adjustable manually. Here you have the bonnet opener, the fuel release, traction control off, and the height for the headlamp. And this is the stock of the blind spot identification system that I was talking about. You just have to press this button and your blind spot feed comes into the main screen. The steering wheel looks very nice, small and chunky. I'm not a big fan of the D-cut steering wheels. I quite like these small chunky steering wheels, and you have a lot of controls. And for this segment, what's new is the controls for your ADAS, so you can decide how far or close you want to be to the car ahead of you using this button, and you can turn the lane keep assist on or off using this button. And these are the basic cruise control buttons. On the left you have volume, home button, and an interesting button is this one. Now, this instrument console that you see here is part analog and part digital. This part here is digital, and you can completely customize how it looks. Let's see how that works. Now, the steering wheel is only tilt adjustable, not telescopic, but what we're talking about right now is this digital part of the instrument console. You press this home button and it gives you a lot of options, and you use this wheel to choose what display you want there. So right now we are at plain tacho. You can choose from range and fuel. This is showing 12 because we have been idling here for a very long time. We have been shooting, so this is not the real fuel efficiency. Then you can go to speed and time. In all the cases, you'll see that the tacho is still there. Then you have the G meter. Then you have the seat belt reminder, where you have an individual seat belt reminder for all the 5 passengers. Safety support. You can go to the settings and you can customize the display. And finally, you have the tab for information. Now, all of that apart, you also have some information right in the middle, and if you have your ADAS on or your cruise control on, all of those details are going to be shown in the middle MID as well. On the right, you have the speedo, which by the way is completely analog. Here you have the button to increase or decrease the brightness. The engine start stop button is here, and I think it's a little too bright for my liking. This red could have been a slightly less bright red, but anyway, some people might like it. The stock quality is pretty good. Now the seats, while they're quite well designed, I would have liked them to have a little bit more thigh support. As you can see, they cover only half the length of my thighs, so while they're not uncomfortable, the seat could have had a longer squab, and that would really have helped during the longer journeys. Also, there is no dead pedal, so a dead pedal would have been really nice. But apart from that, as I mentioned, the storage spaces, in addition to what we have on the door, we have quite a generous storage space there. In addition to that, you have some space here where you can put a wallet and a cell phone. You have some space here which is sufficient for a wallet, 2 cup holders, and I think a very usable place is this wireless charger, because it's inclined, so whatever you put here doesn't get thrown around even if you accelerate or brake. It's also rubberized, so it provides good grip. So all in all, the storage spaces, especially the open storage spaces, are pretty good, and I don't have anything to complain about. Now you have this button here, so you can turn the wireless charging on and off using this button, and when you have your phone charging here, as you can see, it starts blinking with amber and green color. Then you have these 2 USB-A sockets. Unfortunately, you don't have Type-C sockets here. So this one is for your Android Auto, and this one is for purely charging. And you also have a 12-volt, 160-watt power socket as well. Now, let's also have a look at the quality of the reversing camera. And as you can see, it's not one of the highest resolution cameras that we have. It's decent, it does its job, but it's not all that great. It has 3 modes. So right now, as you can see, it's in the wide mode. You can make it slightly narrow, and then you can have a look from the top as well as to what's underneath the rear bumper. So you have these 3 modes, but you don't have guide lines here. This is what the home screen looks like. It's very simple, and I quite like it. It also has these physical buttons, which makes life easy. You can choose from day or night modes by using this button, increase or decrease the volume, and then you have this screen off button as well. Now you have this button for radio, for Bluetooth, for your phone connection, and for settings you can go here. It's a very simple system, and I quite like it the way it is, but that does not mean that it's not very responsive to the touch. It's quite high res, it's good to the touch, and it also comes with 37 connected car features. There's also a mobile app which can be used by the back passengers as a remote for this system. It comes with 6 speakers, and the sound quality is pretty crisp as well. It's very nice and tight. Of course, it's not audiophile level, but for this segment of cars, I really liked what I heard. There is no auto dimming IRVM here, 2 lights. There are 2 vanity mirrors, but there is no illumination. There is a separate light for the rear passenger. Seat belts are not height adjustable, as you can see. And the small glove box is also not cooled. The car comes with 6 airbags, and along with the ADAS and the functions that it comes with, what Honda has been telling us is that this car comes with as many as 28 safety aids. Like I mentioned, this car does not get a sunroof, it does not get a 360-degree camera. What it does get is this more advanced instrument console as compared to the Dzire. It also gets ADAS, and overall, if you really ask me, the fit and finish is really nice. The color appointment, the choice of materials, the overall design. This is a very flat, very straight design, looks very nice, very clutter-free, very fuss-free, and the visibility is very good. If you take the camera a little bit up, you'll see that you can clearly see the high bonnet, so the visibility of the bonnet is very good. Also, a very small detail is that between the A pillar and the ORVM, there is a gap, so the blind spot is mitigated and the visibility is slightly better. So in terms of visibility, you sit in a very nice position. The visibility all around is very good, and overall I quite like what I see here sitting here. And in the sedan segment, I think Honda have done a fantastic job. And in terms of the fit and finish and the no fuss, clutter free kind of an environment that you get here, I will probably rate it slightly higher than the Dzire. Now it's time now to get to the back seat and see how comfortable it is, but before that, let me just tell you that a few accessories and a few features that are not available as standard, like seat ventilation, can be had as an accessory. You can have tire pressure monitoring system as an accessory. You can have front parking sensors. You can have a driving monitor. All of those things are available right off the shelf at Honda showrooms, and if you want any of those features, you can actually have them as an add-on. Let's now have a look at the comfort and space at the back seat. So unlike the front, you don't have a soft to touch material here, but all of the plastics are of a good quality. The fit finish, as I mentioned, is fantastic, and you also have this rather cavernous bottle holder. Getting inside, slightly low than ideal, not like a sub 4 meter SUV which is just about ideal. And like I mentioned, this has a longer wheelbase, so the legroom here is more than the Dzire. Also, if you can see my feet, there is ample space for me to move my feet about. The middle hump is also not very high, so generally while sitting on the two sides, the space is pretty good, except for the fact that the headroom is compromised, and myself being 5 feet 10, my head is already brushing here, and that's one chink in the Honda Amaze's armor. Of course, the Dzire also does not have a very generous headroom, but it is slightly, very slightly better than this. There my head does not brush as badly as it is right now. Now you also get an armrest and 3 separate headrests. Mind you, they are not adjustable, and that again is a feature that's missing here. This car should have had adjustable headrests. Again, the armrest is a little too low for my liking, and as you can see, my right arm is at just about the right height, but I really have to drop my shoulder to use this armrest. It has 2 cup holders, but this armrest could probably have been slightly higher. It comes with a proper 3-point seat belts, ISOFIX child seat mounts, and this AC vent that you see here is a new addition. The AC itself has been improved, the cooling is pretty good, and even on a hot day there is no problem. We have kept the AC blower to a lower level so that it doesn't interfere with the mic, but there is no problem with the cooling. You also get a 12-volt power socket. I would have appreciated a USB socket, and you can insert a converter here and have a type A or type C USB converter as per your choice. Now, the space for a middle passenger is good only for short journeys, and you cannot probably seat 3 abreast here. It's not a very big car, but for short journeys it's just fine. But as long as you are sitting on the flanks, on the sides, there's absolutely no problem. The suspension system on this car is pretty good, the sound system is very good, and the insulation is pretty nice. So even for longer journeys with this legroom that you have, there should not be any problem. The only few problems that I mentioned, the armrest could have been slightly higher, the headrest should have been adjustable, and the headroom could have been a little bit better. The price of the Amaze starts at 8 lakh rupees and it goes all the way to 10.9 lakh rupees, and it's a very good price, make no mistake about it, especially for a car that is offered with ADAS. 10.9 lakh rupees is a fantastic value for money proposition, especially with a car which comes with a 4-cylinder engine and is reasonably well equipped. The boot space here is pretty good as well, but the real question I know is whether this is better than the Dzire and whether it's a more value for money proposition as compared to the Dzire. For the base variant, the price difference is a massive 1.2 lakh rupees, and for the top of the line variant, the difference is about 76,000 rupees ex showroom. Now let's leave the base variant aside for now, because a lot of features are missing on each variant of the car, and I think comparing spec to spec, variant to variant, the two models is the subject matter of a different video. But for the top of the line variant, I think the two things that you miss here primarily are A, you don't have a sunroof, and B, you don't have a 360-degree camera. What you get in return is ADAS and some extra features that you don't have on the Dzire. Now the ADAS feature by itself is a big advantage in my personal opinion. It makes the car all the more comfortable, it makes it all the more usable, and while you're on the highway or even in the city also, it adds that extra layer of safety for you. So in terms of technology, I think the Amaze has a slight edge. Also the fact that it comes with a 4-cylinder engine goes in its favor. However, the Maruti will give you better fuel efficiency, definitely so, because within the city the fuel efficiency of that car is also better. So if saving money is something which is high on your priority list, the Dzire makes more sense, because it's going to save you money not just in terms of the sticker price but also in terms of the running costs over a longer period of time. But if that doesn't matter much, I think the Amaze comes across as a very well made product. It feels solid, it looks neater to me from the inside, and the overall package to me is slightly more appealing than the Dzire. If you really ask me from a perspective of a person who's not too averse to spending 50 to 60,000 rupees extra, it's a very competent car, and I would urge that you go ahead and test drive both the cars before you make your decision. And I really hope that I was able to give you some perspective into what are the highs and the lows, the advantages and disadvantages of the two cars in this detailed review. If you like the video, hit that like button, subscribe to Motoroids. Do not forget to subscribe, hit that bell icon. And until next time, this is your friend Amit Changani signing off. Rev hard, rev free, and drive safe.